Hello everyone and welcome to the Weekly Report. I'm Justin Meyer with the Kansas City Aviation Department, and here are the 3 things you need to know this week. Here at Kansas City International Airport, the Build KCI new terminal project continues on budget and on time for a March 2023 opening. KC Water announced a newly signed consent decree for their Smart Sewers program, which should lower the financial impact on customers and allow for more green infrastructure. Most of all, I'd like to thank you, the Kansas City voter, for voting yes to support Kansas City's earnings tax. This tax in part funds fire, police, trash removal, and road repair. City leaders visited the new KCI terminal site, the largest single infrastructure project in the city's history. The new terminal is scheduled to open in March 2023 with 39 gates and the ability to expand up to 50 gates in the future. The new terminal includes a 6,100 space parking structure adjacent to the terminal building, a central utility plant, and landside and airside improvements. In 2010, a federal judge signed a consent decree requiring Kansas City to reduce the volume and frequency of wet weather sewer overflows. It was originally planned as a 25-year, $5 billion program that resulted in dozens of important projects, but it also started several years of double-digit wastewater rate increases for KC Water customers. This amendment means less need for new gray infrastructure, which drove high rate increases the first decade of the program.
Well, I am so excited. Saving our ratepayers billions of dollars, which, as I said before, is hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars that are back in people's wallets. I mean, it's going to make a world of difference for us.
Thanks to all the voters who went out to the polls on April 6th and approved the continuation of the city's e-tax that funds things like trash, road repairs, and public safety.
So excited to see the e-tax renewed for 5 more years here in Kansas City. Kansas City voters since 1963 have helped support us with a truly regional funding source, a way that we're able to do things like deliver basic services, fix our roads, address public safety concerns, and you're all doing the most important work in connection with it. So a huge thank you to our taxpayers who make it all possible, all of our residents of Kansas City, and now we're going to do the hard work, make sure we fix up the things that we said we would, addressing all that's important here in Kansas City.
Thanks for watching the Weekly Report. I'm Justin Meyer with the Kansas City Aviation Department. Don't forget, spring leaf and brush pickup is happening now, and stay tuned for a video about the Japanese cherry trees at Loose Park.
We're here at Loose Park. These cherry trees came from Japan. This was a gift that was given to us in 2012. The gift of 14 cherry trees were given to Loose Park, and it was for a gift of the friendship between Japan and the United States. When we received these trees, they were very, very small. They were about the size of a number 2 pencil, and they were about this tall. And I thought, how am I going to keep these alive in a public park, especially this area, because we have people play in this area all the time, sports, frisbee, whatever. So I put chicken wire around them and just really had to stay on top of watering and, babying them for the first 3 years until they got some size. And as you can tell, they're pretty happy after all that time and consistently bloom. Last year, when they were blooming, the bees were just thick underneath, so you could stand under these trees and you would just hear the bees humming. It was really, really cool. So if you get a chance, you should come out to Loose Park and take a look at our cherry trees here in the mall area between the pavilion and the rose garden. And in another 2 weeks, the cherry trees at the south end of the park should be in bloom. So that's another beautiful area to enjoy.
Welcome to Lakeside Nature Center. My name's Jackie Blessington. I'm one of the staff here. Today's video series is going to be all about cottontails. All right, you see, I don't actually have a live cottontail here. That's because these guys are high stress animals, and I don't think it's a good idea that we would have a cottontail here for you guys to see. So my little friend here is going to help us with our demonstrations today about what to do for baby cottontails. First, a little natural history. Now, these guys, they really kind of like to live on forest edges, even in open areas, anywhere they can find a tuft of grass that they can hide in, a pile of wood, things like that. Bunnies are pretty much everywhere. Anywhere they have a good food source, which is like, clover and grass, or maybe your vegetables from your gardens, because they like that too. Did you guys know that bunnies, when they are active, it's actually called something called crepuscular? Ever heard that word before? A lot of times people think of bunnies as being active during the day, which is diurnal, or sometimes we see them at night, which is nocturnal. But these guys are actually probably more active in the early morning at dawn and at dusk, which, by the way, is when mom feeds her babies. We'll get to that here in just a second. Speaking of babies, these guys can have them for up to 8 months out of the year. Pretty crazy, right? It only takes about 30 days, 3 to 4 weeks roughly, before a baby is born and it's on their own. Here in the Missouri area, they'll start having babies as early as February, depending on the weather, and it could be as late as September. Now, the average nest might be, 1 to 9. They could have up to 13 babies in the nest, but that's quite a few. It's usually a little bit less than that. And when they're born, they're kind of naked little guys, maybe, 3 to 4 inches long, but they grow so fast. Did you guys know that bunnies are what we call at the bottom of the food chain? Does everybody know what the food chain is? Well, unfortunately for the bunny, but good for a hawk, these guys are high prey species. Because of that, only about 85% of baby bunnies that are born each year actually survive into adulthood. You might think it's sad for the bunny, which you bet it is, but it is really a critical aspect to the food chain, which is why we want to make sure that we provide habitat and space for baby bunnies. Now, there's a lot of reasons why you might think, I don't want to keep these guys in my yard. I have cats, I have dogs. What if a predator gets them? Well, as I mentioned, unfortunately, that is a part of the role that they play in the ecosystem. But that being said, we have some tips that we can help you with to help keep those baby bunnies safe from your dogs and other things going on in your yard. So let's say you find a nest of bunnies and you think, oh my gosh, there's no mom around. They must be abandoned, or they maybe are orphaned. Well, that's not actually true. Remember I said that they're crepuscular? Mom only comes twice a day to feed these guys, nurse them actually. And remember I said that they are high prey species? Well, mom comes just twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. She hovers over the nest for literally just a couple minutes, and those babies nurse very quickly. Mom covers the nest back up, and then she takes off. That's to help so that predators don't go to the nest and find the babies. Once in a while, she gets disturbed while she's nursing, and those babies end up out of the nest. So you might find a random little baby outside of the nest, and it might simply be because mom got disturbed. Look for the nest. It's not going to be too far away. Take those little babies, put them back in the nest, and cover it back up. And let's give mom some time to come back and do what she does best. Now, sometimes you find a little bunny that might be about this size, maybe even a little bit smaller, out roaming around in the grass on its own. And again, you think, oh, he must be abandoned, or he's orphaned. Remember what I said though? These guys grow up and leave the nest when they're only between 3 and 4 weeks old. We like to say, are they size of a tennis ball? Are their ears up and straight? And do they look bright and alert? These guys are probably just fine, and they're making their way on their own. Some things you might look for though is, are they a little unstable? Are there some flies around maybe? Are they not trying to get away? Maybe they need to be checked out by the staff here at the Nature Center. Like I mentioned in one of our earlier videos, you can always bring the babies in. We can make sure that they're healthy, and they can go right back out to where mom can finish taking care of them, or they can live their life on their own. Okay, so there might be several situations where you do find a baby out of the nest, or you create a situation where the baby might be out of the nest. For example, one thing that we run into with folks a lot is running the lawnmower or running the weed eater. They didn't know that that nest of bunnies was there, and suddenly, there it is. What you want to do, of course, is check to make sure that all the bunnies are okay. If any of them are injured, definitely bring them on into the Nature Center. But if they're not injured, put them back into the nest, cover them back up. Mom's going to have a lot of leaf clippings and some fur that she's put in there to line that nest up for them. What you can do if you're worried about mom maybe not coming back to the nest is you can find some simple small sticks outside. We have some tongue depressors here, for example. What you're going to want to do is, let's say that this is the nest where those babies were at. You're going to want to take a few sticks and maybe make some crisscross patterns over them. And make sure that you have enough on there that mom, if there's just two, she might sneak right in on the side and you'll never know whether or not she was there. So let's do at least 4 if we could. Cover that nest up, put these on top. Come back maybe later that evening, see if those sticks have been disturbed. If they have, that means mom's been back to check on the babies and nurse them. Let's say this happened in the evening. Do it overnight. Come back and check it first thing in the morning, after dawn. And again, if those sticks are disturbed, that means that mom's been there and she's taking care of her babies. Now sometimes though, those sticks look exactly the way they did when you first put them down. It doesn't mean that mom hasn't been there. She just might be really good at getting in there and taking care of those babies. Something you can do though is gently move those sticks away and cover the top of the nest and look at the babies. Let's make sure that there aren't any injuries, there's no flies flying around, and you could actually look at those babies and see if they look like they have milk in their bellies. Gently pick the baby up, turn them over, and you might see some white shadowing or what looks like milk in their tummies. Mom's been there, just gently put them back in. A lot of people believe that if you touch a baby bunny, mom will reject them. That's actually not the case. And if you want to be extra careful, you can wear gloves or just touch all the babies so they all smell the same. Baby bunnies though, when they're first born, they actually don't have much smell to them because remember, like I said before, they're bottom of the food chain. They don't want to attract more predators by smell. So it's okay. Go ahead and take care of that. Make sure those babies are getting fed when they've got milk in their tummies. Okay, another reason that we get a lot of calls about baby bunnies in the yard that people are concerned about is their cats and their dogs. And we understand and appreciate that people want to make sure that those bunnies are safe. So we have a lot of options out there. They might be temporary or permanent options that will help to keep baby bunnies safe and protected away from your cats and your dogs. So let's take a look at some of those options we have here that you might be able to try. You know, first things first, you might just want to keep your dogs out of the backyard. If that bunny nest is in the backyard, keep the dogs out of the backyard. Take them out front, take them on a leash, whatever you can do just to give those baby bunnies time enough to go on their own once they're independent. Now let's say you can't do that. Here's a couple options. Let's say before you let the dog out, of course, you know where your nest is at, you have some really easy options like milk crates. So let's say you're just going to take that milk crate, put it over the top of that bunny nest, put a brick on top of it, voila! That keeps the bunnies safe until the dog goes back into the house. Other options, in case you don't have a milk crate at home, is maybe a laundry basket. Again, another simple, easy fix. Simply take that basket out, put it over the top of the nest. If you need to weight it down, put a brick on top of it. Voila, you can do that until the dogs go back into the house. And don't forget though, you want to take those baskets and crates off the nest once the dogs go back in because mom needs to be able to get to her babies. Now maybe you have dogs that are a little more persistent and that crate or that laundry basket isn't going to deter them from the nest. Or maybe you need to have something that's up all the time because your dogs are in and out a little more often than just 5 or 10 minutes at a time. Well, we have more options for you. One is look at this beautiful gate or wire paneling that we have here. You can simply put that paneling all the way around the nest. If you need to, you can put another panel on top of the nest and kind of makes a little basket over the top of it. What you want to make sure though is that the material is wide enough for mama to go in and out of the openings. Perfect and easy peasy. Okay, again, let's say you have some really persistent dogs or maybe even cats that can also get in and out of that wire mesh. Here's some other options that we have. Cinder blocks. Look at that opening on the cinder block. You can make a little nest perimeter, or a little fence perimeter around the nest, Mom can also go in and out of those cinder blocks, and it's a little more permanent. You can, again, either put a wire top on it, or even more safely is to put a board over the top of it, and you can weight it down with another cinder block. Now, as long as you have cinder blocks, they can still get ventilation into the nest. Mom is still going to search out those babies, and she's going to go in and out of there. And that's going to be a pretty good deterrent for some of those more determined dogs or even cats that are out there. What you could do, though, just to give that nest a little bit of a break, is you could remove the board when the dogs aren't out, or at least for periods during the day, to let it get some ventilation as well. But as long as we have those cinder blocks there, they should be good to go. Another easy option that you have is if you have, say, a wheelbarrow. Wheelbarrows are perfect because you can elevate it with a cinder block underneath of it, and Mom can actually go in and out. Wheelbarrows are also perfect for that lovely spring rainy weather that we have around here. The wheelbarrow is going to protect the nest and keep it from getting wet and flooded. And if you need to, you can always take the wheelbarrow off while the dog goes back in the house and put it back when he comes back out. We know it's springtime in the Midwest. Springtime in Missouri means lots of rain, heavy rains. Again, those wheelbarrows are perfect for covering the nest to help protect it from flooding. If you also happen to have an area that maybe has a slope and the nest is on the slope or at the bottom of the slope, you can take things like a plastic lid or even that wonderful landscaping plastic and put it around the upper edge of the nest to help to divert the rain as it's going down. That can also be a semi-permanent fix if it rains frequently in your area. Now, let's say the nest gets completely flooded from the rain. We obviously don't want to leave those babies out if at all possible. We don't want to keep them in for 2 days, but what we can do is retrieve those babies from the nest. Let's take them in the house. If you've got something like a coffee can or a small plastic container, and inside, if you will take like a rice bag or a bean bag, warm it up, not too hot, 30 seconds or so. Put that inside of your little container with a nice soft rag or a blanket and put those babies in there. Let them get dry and warm. Once the rain subsides, or you can get the nest dried out, you can do that in a couple ways too. Take some paper towels, maybe some small hand towels. Just dab the nest dry. Take those babies once they're warm and dry and take them back out into the nest and cover them back up again. If you're worried about Mom coming back, we already talked about how we can test it to see if she comes back using those sticks to see if she moves them. Give Mom at least one feeding opportunity, if not 2, to come back. If you're not sure she's come back and you want to have them checked out, just bring them on into the Nature Center. We'll make sure that they're doing okay. Okay, so we know that life can be challenging sometimes, and people just don't want to deal with maybe our temporary barricades, our semi-permanent barricades. They just simply want to take that nest and move it to a different part of the yard where it's out of the problem with maybe a cat or a dog. Well, that is really not the way to go with baby bunnies. A mom is not going to look for a nest of babies. She'll just assume that the babies are gone, remember that there's predators out there, and will just abandon the search. What is better to do is to try one of the measures that we talked about. Give those babies that 3 or 4 week time frame, and then try to discourage Mom from coming into the yard after that. Now remember, let's say though you found one of those little guys that's 3 to 4 weeks old on their own. They're bright, they're alert, their ears are standing up. Those guys are independent and they can be safely moved out of your yard a little ways away. Don't move them a block away, just maybe move them into the next yard. That'll give them an opportunity to grow up a little bit more, and then they won't be in your yard where maybe there's a problem with cats and dogs. A lot of times we get calls asking for assistance with babies of all sorts, whether it's bunnies, which we're talking about today. And they ask, what can I feed this baby until I can bring it into the Nature Center? Basically, we say don't feed it anything. It is much better to not feed the animal and risk potential problems like aspirations, getting milk into the lungs instead of the stomach. Also remember, every animal has their own special milk that they feed their babies, and what you have at home may not be appropriate for them. So we say, no food, no water, just talk to us, bring it to the center as soon as you possibly can, and then we can make a decision from there as to whether or not that baby can go back out into the wild or needs to stay with us or another home rehabber and raise it until it's ready for release.